The newspapers reported the outcome of Texas desperado. John Wesley Hardin, forged in post-Civil War violence, fell at the Acme Saloon in El Paso when lawman John Selman shot him on August 19, 1895. That ended a trail of escapes, trials, and prison, and a chapter of the Old West. Taken in 1907 in the Bolivian Andes, the photo is considered the last known image of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Cassidy is seen riding a mule. Beside him, Sundance adjusts the saddle. The frame captures the pair in the final stage of their flight, under the watch of authorities and scouts in the area, with informants scattered through the towns. In 1907, Emerson Howe brought him into the spotlight in The Story of the Outlaw. Before that, cattleman John Simpson Chisholm, active since 1854, had joined Charles Goodnight and Oliver Loving between 1866 and 1867 to drive herds into New Mexico territory. In 1878, his ranch sheltered Billy the Kid and the Regulators during the Lincoln County War. Before we go on, hit subscribe and turn on the bell. That way, YouTube knows this content matters and shows it to more people. Born on the San Carlos Reservation, Apache Kid served as an Army scout in Arizona. In 1887, a mutiny ended in gunfire. Arrested and convicted, he escaped during transfer. He became hunted by posses and rangers, crossed Arizona and Sonora for years, and then vanished. In the early 20th century, rumors of his capture or death began to circulate. Born in Kentucky, John W. Poe headed to Texas in the 1870s. He lived first by buffalo hunting, then by the law. In 1881, at 31, he joined the Canadian River Cattle Association with one goal: to track down Billy the Kid. On July 14th, he accompanied Pat Garrett to Fort Sumner, New Mexico, where the chase ended in death. A former teacher, William Clark Quantrill, became leader of Confederate guerrillas, commanding Quantrill's raiders along the Missouri-Kansas border. He planned ambushes on Union troops and towns, striking at night and looting. Wounded and captured, he died in May 1865. His tactics lived on in Frank and Jesse James. Who was New Mexico's most famous lawman? For many, Pat Garrett, who in 1881 killed Billy the Kid in a darkened room. Among Hispanics, another name carries weight: El Fuego Baca. In 1884, he held off about 80 cowboys, withstanding nearly 4,000 rounds of gunfire and dynamite. After the siege, violence in Socorro declined. Bill Miner, born Ezra Allen Miner, spent years in U.S. prisons for horse theft and stagecoach robberies. Freed in 1880, he returned to crime and earned the nickname the Gray Fox. In 1904, in Canada, he pulled off the first successful train robbery. He's credited with the famous command, "Hands up," an icon of the Old West. Nicknamed Badman, Billy Brooks served as marshal in Newton and later in Dodge City. After gunfights tarnished his reputation, he gave up the badge. In 1874, he became a driver for Southwestern Stage Company. When the company lost its mail contract, he joined a plan to loot rival shipments. Arrested, he was dragged from his cell and lynched on July 29th. While trying to rob a Colorado and Southern train, Tom "Blackjack" Ketchum was shot, lost his right arm, and was captured. Jailed in 1899, he was tried in New Mexico territory, and on April 26, 1901, faced the gallows. His case led to tougher railroad protection laws in the American Southwest. In California, the Gold Rush, 1848-1855, drew waves from America, Europe, and Asia, and fueled the portrait market. Studios captured miners with pans and picks in daguerreotypes and ambrotypes, proof of their trade, news for families, or self-advertisement. Today, those images shape the iconography of the Old West. For decades, a photo sold as Josie, wife of Wyatt Earp, was treated as evidence. It appeared on the cover of I Married Wyatt Earp, 1976, claimed to be from 1880. But records tell another story. It's actually the photogravure Coloma from 1914, a late commercial reuse. In 1964, Dan Thrapp cemented Al Sieber's legacy in Al Sieber, Chief of Scouts. A German and former Union soldier, Sieber commanded George Crook's scouts in Arizona during campaigns against the Chiricahua in the 1870s and 1880s. Wounded in 1887 in a San Carlos shootout linked to Apache Kid, he ended his career. It's not who many think. The caption "Mangas, Chief of the Warm Spring Apaches" led to confusion with Mangas Coloratus, the 19th century Chiricahua leader. The photo shows his namesake's son, recorded by A. Frank Randall in 1886. The Smithsonian holds an albumen copy from General Nelson A. Miles's collection. In 1821, William Becknell blazed the Santa Fe Trail, linking New Mexico, then under Mexican rule, to the U.S. frontier. In the decades that followed, caravans of traders, soldiers, and settlers crossed it, boosting Santa Fe. With the railroad in the 1880s, the route lost its purpose and fell into disuse. Around 1885, a cabinet card by Charles S. Baker and Eli Johnston, taken in Douglas, Arizona, shows the men of Texas John Slaughter at San Bernardino Ranch. On the U.S.-Mexico border, they drove cattle. The photo, titled "Cowboys of the Massacre," captures the real pace of herding, with no posing or staging. Texas Jack John B. Omohundro Jr. gained fame on the Chisholm Trail drives. Later, he brought to the stage his partnership with Wild Bill Hickok and Buffalo Bill Cody, fueling the rise of the Western show. In 1877, he created the Texas Jack combination. He died of pneumonia in Leadville at 33. In 1908, Cody had his headstone engraved with 39. On the frontier trail around 1865, Tiburcio Vasquez was already a well-known name in the West. Between 1850 and 1874, he led stagecoach robberies, thefts, and cattle rustling. In 1874, wounded by reporter George Beers, he was captured. Put on trial, he ended his path at the gallows in 1875 in San Jose, Northern California. In 1875, a cabinet card shows Ben Thompson, famed gunman and then police chief of Austin, in a half-length portrait dressed in a suit against a plain backdrop. The image, printed and mounted on stiff card, follows the commercial standard of the time, a studio product made for sale and for circulation in family albums. In 1880, a photo card titled "The Real Cowboy Captured Alive" shows Cottonwood Charlie Nebo alongside Nicholas Janis, a French-American settler in Nebraska Territory. Sources connect Janis to Joseph Antoine, interpreter at Fort Laramie, possibly his brother or descendant, in what was then Wyoming Territory. Peter Bogardus grew up with guns and in the arena. He carried a Remington 1888 and another at his side. Trained by his father, Captain Bogardus, he joined his brothers Eugene, Edward, and Henry in Buffalo Bill's Wild West shows. On long, sold-out tours across the country, they helped popularize marksmanship in the late 19th century. Between 1835 and 1885, the frontier became a business. Former Texas Rangers and Gold Rush adventurers signed contracts with Mexican state governments to hunt Apaches and Comanches. Paid by a private company, they advanced from ranch to ranch. Scalps were the proof, receipts that fueled a legalized market. Around 1850, the wagon driver raised the whip that set the pace for the heavy carts. Men and some women trudged through the dust to keep the caravans moving and the inland trade alive before the railroads. Paradox. Though vital to the route, he stood at the bottom rung of the social ladder. A small piece, a huge story. A carte de visite from 1878, showing Charles Baudry and his wife Manuela, survived stained with blood. It was taken from Baudry's body after the Stinking Springs shootout in New Mexico on December 23, 1880, when Sheriff Pat Garrett killed him and in the same moment captured Billy the Kid. In 1887, Cherokee leader Ned Christy was accused, without proof, of murdering U.S. Deputy Marshal Dan Maples. A manhunt through Indian Territory followed, sieges, shootouts, escapes. In 1892, his hideout was blown up, and he was executed. Afterwards, officers nailed his body to a door and posed for photos, displaying him as a trophy. If you like this content, hit the like button, click subscribe, and turn on the bell. That way, YouTube knows this content is relevant and shows it to more people. See you next time.